Okay, so the first thing we're supposed to do is change the collision system to have the pre-processing. So I have this base class that just has the update values and the collision test. I don't have the matrix and the update values just because I felt it was more natural for me at least to have the matrix and the collision model in the collidable. And instead I have just a pointer to the collidable. So in the constructor I pass in the collidable that's creating the collision volume. And then I have a derived the bounding sphere volume, and in this case we have that center position and radius. These hold the values for the transformed center position and the radius from that world matrix. Sorry. And then I have the update values in the collision tests. And the update values in collision tests is basically just what we talked about, where the update values, all they do is find out the radius and center and all that whenever movement occurs, in my case. And the collision test just checks with another collidable to see if there has been a collision. There had to be a few changes in the actual collision. So for the pairs, just a one-line change where instead of doing that static test collision pair, we now have the collidable's collision volume and then accessing and getting that collision test with the other radius. Same thing for the single processor. We have the exact same thing going on. And so the only times I update values are when I set the collider. So anything to do with the collider mesh, I change. So when it sets the collider, that obviously means we have to update the values, so I update the values. And whenever the world has been changed for the collider, then we update those values again. And the same with the game object shortcut. That's pretty much it. The way you actually make it is, right now I just have a class member that's just called collision volume, and it's a bounding sphere. So I create a new one and I pass in this collidable so that it knows that it has to use this collidable's matrix and the model. And just to show that it works, and I know that this can be probably put into the set graphics collision model. Whenever I'm creating a collision model, or I'm telling it that this is the collision model, I should probably also, in that case, do a new parameter where it states, like with an enumerator, what type of volume I want, and then it creates it at that instance. I just haven't done it yet because we don't have any of the other ones, so I just made it really fast because I wanted to focus on the other parts. So just to show that the collisions do work, and keep in mind that we're using the bounding spheres. And I created a tank, so taking a little while. Okay. So here I'm just going to shoot at it 3 times because it has HP. It should go away. Yep. So the collision does work. So the next thing I'm going to show is just the demo I created, which I actually already showed, but I'll show it again. Something happened. Okay. So I started by making the actual tank itself, and I have independent movement for the top and the bottom. So WASD controls the bottom, and then the arrow keys control the turret independently from each other. So it works just like similar other games. I also have the shooting done. As you can see, it's not actually shooting from the turret yet, just because I haven't messed around with the numbers yet, but it's just to show that it does spawn in the direction of the turret. And that was pretty easy to do. I just have a tank that has 2 parts, a bottom and a top, and then it moves the bottom first, and then depending on its rotation and the rotation values we have for the tank, it takes those into consideration. So that was one easy way of putting those together. That's pretty much it for the demo. It actually took quite a while, but I also have the other demo from the last quarter. And I found out that everything works pretty well. One thing I think I might want to consider is make some sort of like math library for transforming, just because if you look at like the tanks stuff, there tends to be the tank the tank stuff. There tends to be like a lot of math, most of which could have been like put in their own functions. Um, maybe. Uh, So I did quite a bit of research. I looked up OpenAL, SDL, Fmod, but I think that's more for music. I looked up SFML, different types of libraries. I didn't want SFML just because it had a bunch of other stuff that I didn't need, and I just wanted just the pure audio stuff. So I looked at all of them, and I thought that Erklang was probably the easiest to use. So I probably gonna end up using it. And I've looked into it. I've implemented a few of these tutorials in the actual game engine just to see if it works with Azul. And I haven't come up with any errors so far. As you can see, I've already implemented a few stuff, as you saw earlier on. I think there's two ways for me to do this so far, and one of them is just loading the sounds and then calling it with a sound system, like just saying play sound and then the sound you want to play. Um, but that limits me to having one instance of that sound. For instance, if I have like an explosion and I want to change the volume, then the explosion volume is going to be pretty much the same throughout. So I'm not sure if I want to do that. Um, in which case, I'll probably have the game object create sounds on a need basis, kind of like I think that's what also happened in Teal. I'm not sure. There's probably other ways to do it, and I'll keep thinking of them. But right now, I also have the sound manager just loading sound, get the sound. Um, and that's pretty much it. Not sure if it's large enough scope, but that might be just because I just started and I was looking into it. Um, so as you can see, the sound works. And if it ends up like me having finished early or something, I probably will also look into finite state machines because I took the Game AI class and it seems pretty doable. So yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. Oh, one more note is that Erklang only supplies DLLs and not doesn't give you the option to do static linking. And that's because only the Pro version has that, and this is the non-Pro version, which is uh, the non-commercial version. But they're pretty much both the same, except for the fact that you can't static link. So the DLLs will have to be copied um, into the debug folder, unless if I can find a way to link them differently through like properties or something of the project. That's pretty much